Welcome to the world-famous Talent Club and to Doctor Who at the Cavern. Please welcome your host, to us local group coordinator, and if their plans come to fruition, the future Mrs. Peter Davison, it's Erica Edgerton.
Hello, can you hear me now? You alright?
Yeah.
Sorry about the wait.
That's fine.
These things happen, as you know. Did you enjoy last night's episode?
Yes.
He's alright, ain't he?
Yeah.
We have got Mr. Wagner here later to come and scare us all. Yes. Right, okay, so we're late. I'll tell you what's going to happen throughout. The first panel's going to be Debbie Walling, of course. We've got Eric Potts on later on. Of course, lovely Colin Baker as well. Who else have we got? We've got Eugene Washington, who played Mr. Wagner last night. Did you all see him?
Yeah.
And we've got Rob Sheeran here as well, writer of Dalek. Lots of splendid Big Finish novels and plays.
Can we alter the microphone?
Yes, we'll have to touch these. That'll be better.
Well, sure. I think I'll have to stand. I'm perfectly challenged. Short. Yeah, I'm fine. I'm okay. I don't like to touch it. The sound guy will go mad.
Stop touching mine this way.
My husband's a sound engineer, so I know all about that. Right, yeah.
Are you going to stand all the time?
Well, I don't know. Right. What a clever idea.
No, you can't hear me. Oh, I love it. Right. I don't know if anybody's noticed, anybody's interested, but did anybody watch last night, by the way? There's something on.
What's that?
Yes, I've got the figures if anybody's interested.
Yeah.
So far, so it's right upside down my hand. Viewing figures are 7.8. And it's 39.8% of the audience. That's an average. That's not bad, I think, is it? So before you go up, that's fabulous.
Excuse me, before we start, I can't sit here like this
I
for
didn't
40
think you
minutes.
did. No.
Is there a sound person here who could
Just
just
engine off.
an engineer who could just tip this down, because I don't want to touch your gear.
Or a cushion.
I've started.
You have. And she's going to
Thank you. Oh. Attacking me, right. Thank you.
Did you watch last night?
I did indeed, yes. I made a point of it.
And?
I think it's wonderful.
Yeah.
And Tennant's, I think, brilliant. Really cool.
Would you like to be his companion?
Now there's a question. It would be interesting, wouldn't it? Yes. I could play his mother.
I thought Liz was doing that last night. Have you noticed, since Doctor Who came back, have you noticed there's been a big upsurge for yourself personally as being part of the programme?
Well, I must admit I get a lot more fan mail. I did. I mean, it's always extraordinary to me, because I was in the programme, 38 years ago. Which is, oh dear, I can't believe it. I don't know that time's gone, but there you go. So it's lots more fan mail, and I get invited to quite a lot of things, actually. It's difficult. People, because it's now back on the box, I'm more upfront than I have been for years, let's face it. And people stop me and always say, did you see Doctor Who last night? What do you think of it? You know, and what's your opinion, etc., etc. Like I've never ever done any other programme in my life. But I understand it. It's, I'm very proud to be involved with it. Because, as I say, it's a long time ago,
Yeah.
and it's a large part of my life.
Do you think you're under obligation now that you've got to watch every episode now?
Don't be ridiculous. Not everyone, no.
Good, that's all right then. No, we feel it, we've got to watch it. I mean, I haven't seen it yet, so please don't tell me.
You haven't seen it?
No, not yet, not last night's episode.
I shall ruin your day. Let me ruin your day.
The worst thing that happen is that Sarah Jane goes off without the doctor and K9 dies.
Not quite.
Not quite, that's all right. I'm going back in some time, 38 years ago. What was it like on the first day? Walking through the rehearsal room and those back and Fraser?
The first day was actually filming the big house in Harlow. Well, Fraser was there, and my co-stars, the Daleks. That's the first day of filming. It was like the first day back at school. You get the nerves. You always do. But I enjoyed it. I was in this wonderful frock, a lovely frock. Pat wasn't there that day. I met him later on. And I remember seeing that the Daleks had kidnapped me, they killed my father, and there was Jamie coming to rescue Victoria, you know, and all that. And they shot at me going down the corridor with a Dalek on either side of me. And, as I said, I had the long frock, and so you couldn't see my feet. And I looked like a Dalek as well.
What was kind of the studio like? Was it difficult to work with Daleks in those days? Obviously they had all CGI'd and Wizzy and Bling and goodness knows what else. I mean, were they kind of awkward to work with? Did you like it, or?
Well, I know they have the reputation, of course, of being terrifying, etc., in those days as well. Really terrifying for the kids. But I must admit, I was a bit flummoxed by them. Because I thought, well, they're tin cans with bumps all over them, and a plunger. But I became very fond of them. And, of course, the men inside. What Fraser and I used to do, which was very naughty, in our lunch break in the studio at the BBC, everyone said, right, cut, lunch, come up to. Fraser and I used to stay behind. And, of course, the Daleks were empty then, weren't they? Because the guys had gone out for lunch. And Fraser and I used to have races in them. Who won? Usually me. Well, in those days, because it was the feet, wasn't it? Just
I
like
think
this.
probably still is these days, actually.
Is it?
Yeah,
Is it still the feet?
probably. Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah, probably. What was the kind of character, what kind of brief were you given to Victoria? What was she supposed to be like? Kind of girl was she?
Well, innocent. The then producer, Innes Lloyd, he saw me doing Alice, first the Wednesday plays, James Potter. And he saw me as Alice, you know, Alice in Wonderland. And he thought, hang on, wait a minute, we have a character coming up here, Victoria Waterfield. I think that could be the girl to play it, and that's what he told me.
Because she remained very much in innocence all the way through her time with the Doctor. She was never actually felt happy with travelling with him. I think she said at one point, you know, bad things always happen when you're around, kind of, you know. Do you feel
Yes,
that
but I
that's...
think a lot of companions have said that, haven't they?
Well, they often perhaps have kind of said, I mean, especially Rose, she seems to have seconded her very nicely.
Oh,
very
yeah,
much,
absolutely.
You know.
In those days, the scripts were so different. And you couldn't say, Victoria wouldn't say that line or whatever. You had no input into the scripts whatsoever. I used to go to Pat and say, hey, Pat, speak. I don't like that line. Let's change it. So he used to say, Victoria wouldn't say this line. And all, you know, he'd help me.
Yeah.
It was all right, but your hands were tied.
So was it
You were like,
mainly
"Oh, did it?"
Pat was the only one really had the authority to
He
say?
had really, but even he couldn't get away with it sometimes.
Really?
They were very, very strict in those days. And it was a hell of a schedule as well. I mean, every day. And we used to, rehearse 5 days and sometimes 7 days a week.
Yeah. Hard work.
Yeah, and dear Pat got so exhausted towards the end of my time in it. You became ill. You said, I can't do it, I've got to have a holiday. You know, because it was heavy.
So do you think, what was it at the time, was the publicity machine as big as it is now? Were you under a lot of pressure to kind of open things?
No. I did open things, of course, yes. We all did. But not like this now.
No.
No, not at all.
Would you like to be in the show now, doing this stuff? Doing breakfast and stuff like that?
Why not? Yes, I think that'd be great fun, actually.
I think I should have done a TARDIS reunion myself and got everybody back.
A TARDIS reunion?
Yes, like the school reunion.
Oh, I see. Get all of you back.
Yes, yes.
Some of them aren't here anymore.
That's true, it's very true. When you did The Bottle Snowman,
Yeah.
what was it like working with your father?
Ah, Dad. God rest his soul. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant. I saw it, we had the storyline 6 weeks before we actually rehearsed the show. And one day I looked at it and I thought, hang on, wait a minute, Professor Travers? I thought, my dad could play that. With a bit of makeup, etc. Because he was only in his mid-40s at the time, I think. I thought, yeah, a bit of makeup and whiskers and grey hair and glasses, etc. So I went to Willis and I said, here, Professor Travers, how about my dad? He went, brilliant idea. When you go home tonight, ask him. So I went in, I was all enthusiastic, and I said, here, Dad, because he was out of work at the time anyway. I said, how do you feel like being in Doctor Who with your daughter? What, he said. I said, Doctor Who with me? He said, I'll think about it. Well, in the end, he did do it. And he always says, I'm very proud of you, Daddy, because you're the only one of my children who ever got me a job. That was nice.
Sweet. That was still up in Wales, was it? Down on the mountains?
Snowdonia.
That was a bit...
Yeah, Pat was all right because he had this big
Yeah.
hairy coat on. He looked like a yeti himself. And there was Dad, of course, and Fraser. One day I lost them. It was so cold, and we were waiting to set out a shot, and I thought, well, where are they? It was about 10 in the morning, and I asked everybody, I said, have you seen Dad? Have you seen Pat? Have you seen Fraser? Have you... No, they said, no, I haven't seen him, no. Do you know what I found them? At the back of the catering van, sipping whiskey. I said, I want some. They said, no, you're too young. I said, oh, I can, I'm 19, nearly 20. Give me some, they wouldn't give it to me. They said, your little girl, go away. It's not nice at all, nice at all. I made up for it since.
Has anybody got any questions for Deb at all?
Oh, yes. I bet you can't remember that far back, can you? I've got any questions at all.
Gorgeous. Look at that.
Now look,
That's
so do you know, I'm not terrifying. I really am not. So is there anything you'd like to ask whatsoever?
What were the jokes like that were played on the set? On
What?
the set, I should say.
What were the jokes like?
the clean ones.
I didn't know you knew about the others. Yeah. Then Pat and Fraser, especially Fraser, they were very naughty to me. Well, I think to all the companions, quite honestly. And they sent me up rotten. I remember, oh dear, one day we were filming, oh gosh, what was my last storyline? Fury from the Deep on Margate Beach in January. It was absolutely freezing. And throughout the year that I appeared in the show, my skirts got shorter and shorter. And so I ended up in a helmet, mini dress, etc. Mini skirt. Anyway, the shot was coming in from the sea in a dinghy. 3 of us get out, we rush along the beach, and all of a sudden, voila, there's this big pile of foam. And I thought, oh, I don't like the sound of this. So I said to Fraser, I said to Pat, do you mind if I just stand on the periphery of the foam? You know, because the camera was there, you couldn't move, and you go in and you play what you want and do what you want with all this stuff. And I'll just say, oh, doctor, what is it now? Oh dear, let's go, or whatever. So the director says, like, action. So we get out of the dinghy, you know, we're quite wet. We go along, and we see this big pile of foam, and I go, I'm staying here, doctor. You, Jamie, you find out what it is. So I'm standing at the edge, and they go in and they're having a wonderful time, chucking the foam up and down, and doing this and that and the other, and handstands or whatever. And all of a sudden, they stop. And they look very slowly at each other, and they look very slowly back at me. Now, as I say, I couldn't move because of the cameras in those days, and behind the cameras there were some of the public who had heard that we were filming Who Then. Anyway, very slowly Pat and Fraser walk towards me, and I'm thinking, swine, don't you do anything to the beast, don't. And they grab me, they pull me into the middle of the phone and give me the birthday bumps. Whereupon I thought, I'm going to kill him when the camera's off, I'm going to kill him. The director says, cut. He said, what a brilliant idea, says the director. Terrific, we only have one problem. And I said, well, what's that? He went, somebody behind the camera on the public laughed. So, wardrobe, dry her off, towel her down, we're going to do it all over again. That was one of the jokes.
Bless their hearts. Did you the Cybermen, which is probably one of the big, kind of, probably the big 10 stories of Doctor Who.
Well, that's my only remaining storyline, isn't it? I
Full
think.
story.
It's full story, I think. Has anyone seen Tomb?
Yes.
Oh, you do remember me. Oh, that's nice, thank you.
We like to. There was a big hoo-ha when it was all brought out. You remember Mark doing a big thing on the video, and that's what's happening to MBD again. What, have you got any memories of actually filming with the cast or pastel? No.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, you are rotten to me. Right. Now, I remember actually one thing. There was the honeycomb effect when they all started to come alive. The twos. And I thought that was really scary. When all of a sudden, they were still, weren't they, frozen in time. And all of a sudden, one hand went from the head. And because it was like a human form, had 2 legs, 2 arms, sort of head, I thought that was terrifying. And it actually at the time, we got complaints from the public saying children should not be
Really?
see this. And so, and I remember Maurice Barrett. Maurice Barrett, our director, was very strict. One of the old school. And you used to go into the rehearsal room, other directors that had their script, and they say, right, we'll go to this scene, that, yeah, great, fine, whatever. Maurice, he had a music stand in the middle of the rehearsal room with a script on it. Now, Maurice, as I say, of the old school, disciplinarian, that's it, disciplinarian. Oh, strict as hell. And with Pat as well. And Fraser didn't like it at all. Right, come on, you there, you there, you there. Do you know what he did? We got to actually shoot in the studio. And he had his camera angles. He didn't want to move the camera. He said, this is not quite right. No, we'll move the set instead of the cameras. They had to move the whole set. Didn't just move the cameras 2 foot, the whole set. Took hours. Cost a big fortune. I don't think he ever worked again there, actually.
Right. But that lovely scene with Pat, where Victoria's missing her father and missing her friends. And she asked the doctor whether or not he misses her with his family. And he says, yes, he does. I mean, it's a lovely scene to play.
I'm told it's now regarded as a classic. And it does survive, doesn't it?
It does.
Yes, I remember that day very well. That day, actually, I was living in Essex and used to drive to the beauty centre. That day I woke up with appalling flu. I couldn't even stand. Centre sent a car for me, and I got to the studio and we filmed that scene. I thought, I'm never going to get through this. I am never, ever going to do it. And then we started, and Fraser was under the table asleep or something. And we started, and it went really well. Because Pat and I, we had a remarkable friendship. We adored each other, and we could just act together. You forget the cameras, you just talk to Pat when I was on screen with him. Anyway, we started the scene, and I got right to the last line and fluffed it. And in those days, you couldn't just retake the line. You had to go right the way back in the beginning. I thought, oh no, and Pat said, come on little Debs, we'll do it again together. And Fraser, that's the beast on the table, laughed. Oh, I love Fraser so much. Anybody else get any questions? Come on, I've given you a kind of a...
What are you currently doing now?
Not a lot. Not a lot. I have my own gardening services. I adore gardening. I create gardens. And still, I still work, yes, but I feel I've been in the business a very long time. And I mean, if a wonderful park came up, of course, well, we'll do it. But I am slightly now disenchanted because tennis changed. If you look today on the TV, the reality programs, gardening, makeovers, auctions, anything you like to name, in my day it was all the actors were employed. Think of this, series, this, that and the other. There isn't that anymore, at all. So there's not enough parts to go around, that's what I'm really trying to say. And all, stuff from Australia and America, they've really hit the British actors badly. And all my friends are suffering from it. I could name names, which you'd know immediately and think she can't be out of work. My God, 4 years, all this goes on. So, as I say, I'm a bit disenchanted. So I've got something else.
What about autobiography? Anything?
Do you know, I've been asked to do this. And I always thought I was too young. But, I think you might be quite right there. But I couldn't do it on my own. Somebody has to do it with me.
Fraser.
Get off, nothing will get done, Fraser.
Anybody else?
What do you think to the current companions, their portrayal of, in modern times, playing a character 38 years ago? What do you think to the modern take on the companions?
I think they're brilliant.
You do?
Yeah, I really do. Gutsy. Get in there with the action and all that. My God, if I could have done that. I did actually hold a gun at one point, didn't I?
Did you?
Well, I did. You said you saw the side of them.
I was watching it.
Get out!
No, you did.
I'd love to have done it. I'd love to do it now.
Yeah.
Oh, it's very strange. My agent always sends me a letter of what he's put me up for every week. It could be this, that and the other, TVs, whatever. And this one came through and said, I can't remember the character, one that's coming up. And it said, so-and-so, so-and-so, love letters, something in it. Doctor Who. I went, what? So I've been put up for it. A new character. So you never know, kids.
Watch this space.
Watch this space.
Because you came back and did Downtime, didn't you?
I did, yes.
With James Breen and Nick as well.
With Nick Courtney.
Yes.
Yeah, and Liz.
Yes.
Yes.
That was quite exciting. And with the Yeti again.
Yes. Very cleverly get it
They were
on.
very clever, those ones.
Do you know, I went out with one once. And I went out with a Simon.
No riveting personality.
No! I felt sorry for them. But they were like 7 foot tall, you know.
You always seem to have big monsters, didn't you? Ice
What do you mean,
warriors.
big
Well,
monsters?
Ice Warriors, Cybermen, Yetis, all kind of big.
Well, my era was called the Monster Era,
Yes.
wasn't it?
Yes.
There was only one storyline when Pat played Salamander. No monsters.
No. What was it like with Pat doing the dual roles?
That was ridiculous. You made me laugh a lot. When he first started to do Salamander in the rehearsal room, Fraser and I looked at each other and we went, oh, Patrick, you're not going to do it like that, sir. And he went, thank you for the support.
Whoever I speak to with Doctor Who, they always seem to have so much love and so much, I don't know, they must have so much fun on the programme. Is it the same for you?
It was. Yes, because we became family.
It seems a very unique programme. I don't think there's very many other programmes you can actually say that that was the atmosphere and everybody says a family.
Yeah, we did. Do you know, the extraordinary thing is, all the girls, we do these conventions, and the girls adore each other, all the companions. And it's just, we all get on. And it's, I mean, right, Wendy Padbury, she'd come up to me and say, hello little Debs, how are you, and all that, you know, and Annika, and Liz, and I mean, it's amazing.
I think it's wonderful.
And we all stand up for each other. If anything is wrong, or if anyone does something wrong to one of our girls, they're in for it. We gang up together.
I feel the sound is all right today.
Absolutely.
Yes. With Fury from the Deep, Victoria left, it was quite sudden at the end when she decided what's not going to stay with his family and they're going to look after you forever and ever. Why did you leave in the end?
Because I had a year's contract. And I felt I couldn't go any further with Victoria. I mean, there's nothing more I could do. I tried to play her a bit like a tomboy and get some guts into her. And I thought a year's enough. That's it. I think I'm going to go.
Yeah.
And I said to Innes Lloyd, the producer, I said, well, this is my last storyline. He said, what are you talking about? And I said, well, my contract's up. He said, well, you're written in for more shows. Don't leave. And I said, it's an awful thing to say, but I feel I've got to. I'm going to miss everybody so much. And it was my decision. Never look back.
Yeah. So they actually didn't want you to go, they were quite happy
No,
to keep
didn't
Victoria
want
on
to.
for another.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So did you have any input into how Victoria left? Or was that up to the writers?
It was the writers really.
Yeah.
I actually did say I'd like to be left on Earth. And I was adopted,
Yeah.
wasn't I?
Yes.
Yeah. I remember the last scene of that. My very last scene in Who. And you had the cameraman there, the cameramen and the props men and the, you know, tough guys, etc. And there was this scene, and I had to say goodbye to the doctor and Jamie. And we started it. I know it's destroyed now, but if you saw it, you'd be amazed. Because I got right to the end of it and started to go, like tears in the eyes. It wasn't like we were being filmed, it was extraordinary. And then Pat started. And even Fraser had watery eyes and all this. And when you got over the scene, and I just froze. And I looked round the studio. The cameramen were in tears, the props men were in tears, everyone was in tears. And I just said, thank you very much for a wonderful year, and walked off. And then looked back.
Hopefully that now. So surely anybody must have lots of different fame, you know.
If you could reach back in time and save one of the stories that was lost, which one would you go for and why?
That was lost. I think it's going to be rather obvious, I would say. But anything to do with my father being in it. And I'm very lucky, actually, in that respect, because I can see Dad when I want to. I've got a video or a DVD. I love doing the Yeti stories. I really did. You know. Oh, there's one story. Can I tell one story? Yeah. What is that noise?
The underground. You know about that, the underground.
Yeah, the Yetis, yeah. I'll tell one story. Maybe you know it, but it's one of my favourite ones. When I was filming down the underground, what was it? Web of Fear. And of course, once again, Victoria is dragged off by the monster, the Yeti. But she drops a hanky on her way. She's down the tunnel, they drag her off down the tunnel, underground tunnel. Whereupon Pat, Fraser and Dad start looking for her. Fine. So the rep says, right, action, and I'm behind camera looking at the scene. And Pat says, oh Victoria, what are we going to do? She must have come this way. And Fraser says, well, we'll find her, Doctor, don't you worry. And Professor Travers says, now, we won't panic about this, we won't panic, you know, and they carry on, and they carry on. And all of a sudden, Pat stops and looks down. Aha, he says, and picks up, very delicately, a pair of of knickers. Whereupon Pat says, ah, yes, look, she must have gone this way, these Victorias. Jerry takes them and says, oh yes, they are. Father takes them and says, how do you know?
Proud to have your father on set, actually. Anybody else?
Do you have any stories from conventions or events?
What sort of stories?
Yeah, just interesting things that happen.
Anything funny happened at an actual convention?
Oh, right.
Mistaken for somebody.
Yes, yes. Well, there was one time, actually it happened here in Liverpool. It was one of my first conventions I ever did. And it was at the old Holiday Inn. Or is it Marriott now? I don't know. Anyway, one of those. Oh, pardon. and I said to my husband, Steve, I said, come on, come with me. It's a long drive, please. And he said, oh, right, okay, I'll come with you, it's fine. So we arrive, and we book into the hotel, and he walks round the corner like this. I said, what's the matter? Are you all right? He said, we have a visitor. I said, what? This time of the morning? He said, there's a Dalek outside. You go and sort him out. I refused to move.
You've done it before.
I've done it. There's a Dalek outside.
You've done it. Anybody else? Gentleman in the second row.
Do you consider Doctor Who the best thing done, or if you don't, what's the best thing you have done?
That's a very unfair question. Rotten, that is.
No pressure.
No pressure. I will put it this way. Doctor Who was a great part of my life. I learnt a lot about television technique, cameras, etc., lighting, sound, whatever. I always be grateful to Victoria because she's always there with me in some extraordinary way. I don't know. When I did Downtime, I thought, I don't know if I can get this woman back, this girl back. Victoria. I got on set and she was there, albeit older, but she was there. She came straight back to me. People said, it's uncanny. And I said, it's weird, isn't it? You know. Maybe you're right, actually. Maybe it is one of the most important things I've done. I've done a lot of theatre. I did films, all that, but I'll always be remembered for Victoria. Oh, and the other one, who was a total contrast, Naughty Norma, Danger UXB, which was great fun.
Yes.
Ah,
A complete contrast though.
complete contrast. I loved her.
Yeah.
She was a cross between Diana Dawes and Marilyn Monroe with a Cockney accent. Great.
Classy bird. So, being part of Doctor Who, I mean, it's a cult. I mean, that's why I'm all here today and say, was it 7.8 million watched last night?
How many?
7.8 million people watched Doctor Who last night.
Ah,
Probably more would have recorded it.
wow, that's a huge figure. I mean, it's not the biggest you can get. Or
Oh, I think you can get bigger.
you must be able
Yes,
to.
yes, you can get bigger. But for you sitting there, I mean, it's because of you and what you did 38 years ago that we are sitting here today and all those people are watching it. I mean, is that a little bit daunting?
No, it's not because of me.
Mm.
It's because of all of us. And
You're a very significant part of it.
I was what?
A significant part.
Look, I only did a year. And others, I mean, they went on for, I don't know how long did Wendy do it for? 2 years? Fraser, 3 years? I mean, I was nearly a year. I was a tiny part of it, really. No?
I don't think anybody would agree with that, would they?
No.
Are you sure? Well, that's news to me. I mean, I'm rather pleased. Thank you very much. That's lovely.
We wouldn't be here otherwise.
Exactly.
You're right. Who remembers me in it? Did they actually see it when I was 19 years old?
Yes.
No. Good Lord. Do you remember the first Eve of the Daleks that I did?
Yes.
Yes, with a flock. Yes. You can tell that they're elderly.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Oh, good. So somebody actually remembers.
You'll remember. I mean, there are some children. I've seen some little teeny people. There's one down there. Do you remember? Obviously, you don't remember.
No.
I might be last one, but I no common sense whatsoever. Have you watched any of Debbie's episodes? And what do you think? See? Brilliant.
Which ones have you watched? Did you watch the Cybermen?
Well, I've seen two of the seven.
That was just on the
Well,
same
the
time.
box sets.
I've listened to Older and I've listened to
How did you get interested in the programme? Right. Thank you very much.
So there you go.
That's brilliant. Thanks. Can I have a round of applause?
Yes. So would you go back if you've got that call and there's that part we put you up for, you've got it? Would you go back?
Do you think I'm an idiot? Do I have to answer that question? I'm sure everybody knows. Yes.
Excellent. What do you think of the new interior TARDIS?
I don't recognise it.
No.
No. It works in this day
I
and
think
age.
Pat would have liked it.
I did hate it. These things off. In my day, the console, like, it wobbled and there was a charm about it. It was in black and white and there was atmosphere and, the knobs. I mean, they were all going like this. But you have to be very careful when you touch them because, that's it. If you did that, it would go, ooh. But, no, it's... I'll get used to it. I mean, I'm not stuck in my ways, I don't think. No, as I say, it's right for the time. You don't know.
Should be white and brown things, of course. So fashion girl. Anybody got any other questions? Right at the back.
How does it make you feel that the majority of your stories are lost now?
How do you think?
Probably the same as us.
Yeah, it's rotten actually because it seemed to have hit my era. And I honestly didn't think I was that bad. There were rumours going around that Pat wanted them destroyed. Absolute rubbish. They wanted to, I don't know, they wanted to re-record over them, didn't they? They did it, not with Just Who, they did it with Hancock's Half Hour. I mean, a classic programme.
Z-Cars, I think, got hit as well.
Z-Cars got hit. I mean, how short-sighted. And now, of course, the Bee want it all back. They want to try and find everything.
Fat chance.
Yes.
Gentleman in front of the question.
If you'd have the same amount of publicity as Billy Piper, being in the newspaper every week, would you have enjoyed it?
I'd have loved it. Yes. I don't shy away from publicity or anything because it comes with a job, doesn't it? And I think I'd like to earn money as well.
Yes.
Yes. Oh.
Yes. And a wardrobe. We've got time for one more, and then we have to say big thank you to everyone. So, one person, one last question.
Anybody else? Well, if you haven't got a question,
Did
look
they
at
pay you
anything.
enough?
Eh?
Did they pay you enough? ABC?
Get off. Rubbish. Not really.
Compared with now?
Well, on that wonderful note, I think we should finish.
Well, I'd like to say thank you very much. I adore coming back to Liverpool. I've never been here before, which is quite extraordinary. That's a train again. And love to see you all, and hopefully, meet up later. Okay. Thank you.
Our next guest is a young man who's been in Doctor Who for a while. He's done a lot of Big Finish, and he wrote one of last season's most popular episodes. I think you'll all agree, Dalek. Do we agree it was a good episode? We do. So, would you like to talk to the man himself? I give you the one, the only, as far as I know, Mr. Rob Shearman!
Very hot up here. It's the Paul McGann thing. The one that was
Right.
Yeah.
Can you stop talking, please? This is my show. Bloody hell, bloody writers. Gab, gab, gab.
I shall go now.
Right. Sorry, and you are...
I don't even know who I am. It's Sunday morning. I mean, God,
I'm a serious traveller in time, aren't you?
about 3 p.m. I know who I am.
Okay, right. Right, okay, we'll kick off. Rob, you're a writer. So, when you were a little Robette,
Yes.
watching Doctor Who on telly,
Yeah.
what did you think? Did you think, one day I want to write for that? Or did you think, one day I want to act in it? So, I'm
No.
crap at acting, so I'll write.
I did want to be an actor actually, but I was rubbish. And I joined the National Youth Theatre, and they threw me out because I can't say my L's and my R's very well, and I have a bit of a stammer. So they said that I would be the worst actor in the world, and I concurred. And I thought, well, I better be a writer then.
Can you say some good?
I mean,
Sorry, I'm taking the
Let me
mickey.
just- if I can't sing it's like lullaby or lollipop, you can hear I can't do it, you know, because the L's are rubbish. So I thought I'd better be a writer because I still love the idea of being in the theatre and things.
Yeah.
But no, but when I was watching Doctor Who, I was back at my parents and I found this synopsis I'd written when I was 13 to write a Sontaran on Gallifrey story.
Right.
And it's rubbish. but actually no worse than anything else I've ever written, so I probably ought to have given that to Russell.
But are you your own worst critic, though? You know, you say it's rubbish.
Well,
Surely somebody else.
I would like to believe I was, but actually I've read some stuff that I have had some dreadful critics in newspapers in my time. I had a play that was meant to go into the West End, and it was called A Low-Brow Ball by the Times, and it never got there, and that was probably mine. So I think Kate Bassett's my worst critic from the Independent.
You've got a list of them, have you?
Yeah, I did actually want to write a play once, which you'd have to review, called Kate Bassett is a Cow. Except the word cow wasn't going to be the word, but then
Similar spellings?
possibly be theatrical suicide, and he would still write me a bad review, and it wouldn't really be a very sensible idea. But no, I'm a fairly bad critic of my own work. I mean, it's difficult, and you can't relax with it. I mean, I've seen Dalek a few times, but only because I have to.
You have to. You're probably sick of it now.
Well, I've done a few live commentaries and things that mentions and things, and so I won't watch it otherwise. I just have to watch it and talk over it, and it's quite funny.
So, how did you first get into writing for Doctor Who? Was it the Big Finish stuff, or was it the fanzine stuff?
I did a fanzine when I was a kid, but I never wrote fiction. What I wrote was just awful, badly written reviews of Peter Davison stories that were on at the time, which I just told the story and just said, no, I didn't like it at the end of it. It was a really crap fanzine, actually. You can see it on eBay, it's called Cloister Bell, and it's rubbish. And I was dreadful. I mean, I tried reviews things I'd never even seen, which was quite common at the time. I remember writing a review of The Smugglers that was broadcast 4 years before I was born, and is obviously not in the archives. So I don't know how I wrote a review. I think I based it upon the paragraph in the Jean-Marc Officier programme guide. I just said, oh, it's probably boring.
Secrets of coming out here.
So, yeah.
So when did you decide to kind of move into fiction, then? Did you just think, I'll just give it a go?
I just began writing drama in the 80s, and I was mainly a theatre writer, and I moved into radio and then into television. But Doctor Who was never something I took particularly seriously until, Big Finish one day gave me a call and said, would I write for this new audio range? And Virgin had asked me to write a book for them, but I said no, because I can't write prose very well. So I've never been able to get a novel out. But I thought, well, I could probably write an audio drama. So I wrote a few of those, and I think that's, well, I know that's what got me the TV series. Was that one day, actually, it was one of those really weird things, because when the new series was announced, I'd never dreamt, I was just pleased it was back, being a fan. I thought, great, I'll be able to watch it.
So did you kind of pitch yourself? Did you kind of write in and say, hey,
No,
I like Doctor Who and I
it's a
write?
strange thing. I just changed agents, and I'd been working for the last 6 months on this dreadful BBC series called Born and Bred, which I hope you've never seen, but has now been cancelled, which is such a shame because it was such a fun show to work on. And I had said to my agent when I just joined her, I said, I'm never going to do serious television again. I'll never write for a television show which I'm not creating. And then Doctor Who came back, and I had this phone call from her. I was on a bus in London. And she just said, look, I've had this call for you to do on a show. And I said, yeah, I don't want to do them. And she said, well, I've sort of told them probably no, but it's something called Doctor Who. And I said, yeah? She said, apparently you're writing, I think you might want to do it actually, because they're getting some good writers on board, and it's episode 6 you're doing, and you're bringing back the Daleks.
And you were on the phone going...
And I said, yeah, right. I was on the bus, and I said, and you said no. And she said, well, I've told them probably not. And I said, no. I said, well, I said, give them a call anyway, and because I was, and I wanted to dance down the arse of the bus, but they arrested you for that. So that's the thing that I really thought that I wouldn't, I mean, the other thing was that the first time I ever met Russell and Julie and Phil and Helen was at that first meeting, after we'd been commissioned. So I had this awful thing, I'd go into the meeting and they'd say, oh, no, I didn't mean you. And they'd say, no.
The other option.
But no, I never dreamt of pitching because I never thought I'd get it. It was that odd thing that, and also no one could pitch, and no one still can pitch. I mean, Russell will give you a call and say, right, it's time for your Dalek story.
So your work just spoke for itself then? Somebody just saw it and thought, wow, that's...
Yeah, and again, that's also the worry is that normally in TV, you go for tons of meetings because people can't stand the idea of working for you as, in a small room in the BBC for 9 months if they can't, if they're not going to get on with you, it's going to be horrible. So normally you go through meeting after meeting after meeting in which you try and persuade them that you're not actually either someone who can't write or a gid. And then they would say, all right, you can write for our series then. But I was already commissioned before I met any of them. And that's actually quite frightening because you go and meet Russell, who's this 6'7" Camp Welshman, and he just hugs you. And you think, well, if I now just push you as a get off, you can't get rid of me. Actually, they probably could have sacked me.
Maybe.
But they did.
Seems pretty powerful, doesn't it?
Yeah, he's a big presence, Russell.
Is he
like overwhelming, actually?
Is he anything like his image? He's got some
big
camp guy,
fun
and all that, or is he
That's all Russell is. He's just a big camp guy who writes Doctor Who.
That's all he is.
And he's not here. So,
I think we'd know if he was here, wouldn't we?
Well, the thing about Russell, I've still got his texts on my mobile and his emails because, being Doctor Who fan, you think, I'm not going to ever lose those, so you keep them. But they just, but they sound like the way he is on television. He goes, hooray! Exclamation marks, marvellous, Daleks! that whole first meeting with Russell and Julie and Phil was basically saying, you got me about the Daleks! And then he started cracking you. You think, yeah, I know. And because I'm from London, I said, yeah.
They're like rubber balls or something.
Yeah, well, they're also big and Welsh. And all of them are just bouncing off the wall. You just say, yeah, Daleks.
And you're standing there going, yeah, all right,
yes, I think I'll do that for you. And I think that they were a bit concerned I was a little bit taking it too much in my stride. I wasn't going, yes, because I'm from Surrey. I can't do that.
That's okay. Don't worry.
Everybody in Wales is like that. I mean,
are they?
Yeah, actually, it's the weirdest thing. You would go to the BBC and you'd have meetings in London and in Cardiff. And in London, you'd go up to reception and you'd say, hello, I'm here for a Doctor Who meeting. They'd go, no, you're not. And you say, I am. I said, no, I don't think so. I don't think there's a meeting today. I said, no, there is. They said, yeah, I don't care if there is. You can't. Could you leave the building? I mean, seriously, I got that. And I said, no, I'm really got a meeting. I said, no, there's nothing down. Could you leave, please? And they thought I was an extra from Casualty. Seriously, they thought I was actually trying to get a really psychic audition for Casualty. They said that. They said, well, the extras for Casualty, mate, are over there. Don't try any of this, because we've had this from them. I said, no, I'm writing a Dalek story. They said, don't care, mate. You go to Cardiff, and Cardiff don't make television programmes, they hadn't before. You go into the, I mean, I shouldn't say that, but
No, you shouldn't.
you go into BBC Wales and they go, hello, at reception, you say, hello, are you really? You're doing your thing? Well done, marvellous, hello, great, yeah, right, I put a meeting, I say, have you really a meeting? What, the third floor? I'll give them a call, how exciting, and everything's exciting for them. And you get in the lift at BBC Wales, and the head of BBC Wales has got his old daughter to do the lift announcements. And so it says in Welsh and in English, third floor. You think, what the hell? And then you wouldn't get that in BBC London because they just say, no, don't care. But I was just so excited all the time. It makes
You've probably employed half the country, haven't you? You know, the new series.
Yeah, well, but they're so excitable. I mean, it's like they've never even seen a television before. They go, oh, there's a box and pictures come out. So, I mean, it was the most fun. Because they were all, I mean, even if you go into a meeting which they basically just said, your script's rubbish, hooray! It was always inspiring because Russell was always happy. I mean, he always made you feel, even if he was saying, even if when they said to you things like, guess what, we've lost the Daleks, do a new episode, hooray! They made you feel quite good about it, like it was an achievement that actually, we had to be in this script. Back to the drawing board. That'll be fun, won't it? It'll be an opportunity for you. So, yeah. Thanks. But that is good, isn't it? And they'd say, yes, it is. And so, you know, you'd always be cheerful.
I'll tell you what, I'll just let you talk now.
Sorry.
Right, okay. What restrictions did they place on you when you knew you had the episode Dalek, you knew the Daleks were in it?
Yeah.
Were there specific things you were told you cannot do?
No. In fact, that was part of the difficulty, is that, I mean, because we had all heard rumours, but when they did Randall and Hotcoat Deceased a few years ago, there was this big problem because it was going out at 7 PM, I think, as well. And you can't show death. That was a new BBC guideline. They don't want death on the screen willy-nilly. And I was concerned because I thought, well, I'm doing this Dalek story and it's not going to kill anybody, it's going to maim them or something. And they said, oh, no, try it. And so, but every draft you would give, they would say things like, we could probably put a bit more horror in after my first draft. So great. So I went away my second draft and I killed everybody. And in fact, that whole sequence, because I had right from the beginning, I wanted to have that sink plunger thing where, but it wasn't. It was much more graphic than that, the version I wrote, and it was.
Bloody scary, that bit.
But it was the plunger went out and the rubber enveloped his head and it grew over his head and it picked him up still screaming and threw him around a bit, threw him against the wall, he fell down, his face had burnt off to a skull. And this was draft 2. This draft 1 I just didn't put any death in. And Russell just said, what are you doing to my show? I said, I don't know. He said, more. He said, not this. So it was trying to sort of go back and forth a bit. I mean, it was, we really didn't know. And that's the hardest thing about it, because at least now they do know Series 2 and Series 3. We didn't know who it was for. I mean, you go to different meetings and they'd sometimes say, well, we don't know, maybe it's for 8-year-olds. And then they'd say, no, actually it's for adults. And so you try and redress your draft according to how people in the meeting spoke to you last time.
The finished version was pretty graphic, I thought.
And actually it really worried me, because, I mean, I was watching Aliens of London and World War III. In fact, I'd seen them, but Dalek had just been made. And I just thought, I've got this completely wrong. I mean, they have made Dalek now, so they can't change it, but I just thought this is the wrong tone. But I don't think we ever really knew what the tone was, and I think that I got a bit scared therefore, when in that week building up to Dalek, I just thought, what if the audience just say that isn't actually what we've been led to believe that the show is?
Yeah.
But then Stephen Moffat came over to my house the night Dalek aired with a video of Empty Child, and we watched it together. And Stephen actually went white, he just said, I've gone too far. This is the scene where with Richard Wilson.
Yeah.
He said, I wouldn't let my kids watch that. And it was that sort of awkward thing about not really knowing how far.
Yeah.
But Russell just said, go away and write an episode. I mean, it really was very much a clean slate. And then they'd give you notes, but there were no restrictions. I mean, I was told to introduce Adam, that loser companion, and I was told to bring back the Daleks and base it on Jubilee, but I could do pretty much whatever I wanted within that.
Were you told just to have one Dalek?
Well, that was always the commission.
Was that deliberate?
But that was because I'd done that in the Jubilee Big Finish audio, and they commissioned me because they wanted me to adapt that. They thought it was very clever that, because they knew they were coming back en masse at the end of the series, obviously, they said, let's set it up so the introductory story has this one final Dalek. and we'll make them believe that's the last one. And I said, yeah, great. So it was always going to just be Royal Dalek.
And you got to go down on the set and actually meet the Dalek.
Yes, and I hugged it.
Yes, I read about that, yeah.
Yeah,
in front
well,
of people or in a quiet corner?
well, actually, the thing is that everyone told me to hug it because they were
chaperones.
No, it's that sort of odd thing. You go on the set, and I find as a writer going on the set anyway is quite scary because, well, you don't want actors to come up to you and just say things like, as has happened, 2 writers I know said, these lines are rubbish. And you say, oh, right, thank you. I mean, because you always feel actually if there are any problems on set, it's because of something you wrote which isn't easy to film.
Yeah.
So every delay seems to be your fault. So I spent only 2 days on. I couldn't take more than 2 days on set because it just makes me nervous. But I went on and the Dalek. I was at university with the chap who was inside the Dalek, so he just blown himself up a few times. It was the scene where it revives and the electricity comes in and it shoots things, and so I had to blow everything up around him. And Barney had to wear a sock over his head because otherwise he could be seen through it, and he was scared out of his mind by that. And it was so I went into this room just full of wreckage, and there was this Dalek sitting there, and everyone was cameras and said, "So could you hug it?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll hug it."
Go on, might never happen again.
But I did want to, because it was really, I mean, I know it sounds stupid, but actually, this big, robust thing was actually very intimidating.
Well, I used to laugh at them on television, and then we picked up a life-size replica Dalek for an event a couple of years ago, and I had to have it in my living room for about a week. And it's weird, he's sitting there at 7 o'clock at night, out the corner of your eye. You know?
Yeah, no, it's scary.
Bloody scary.
Yeah, and I definitely felt that. I mean, Billy he didn't even know what they were.
So do you want one yourself?
No.
No. Because Russell's got one in his
one in his front room. I mean, I had to. It was actually it was the nastiest thing when we lost the Daleks, and I had about a month to write another episode. I went over to his house in Manchester to chat about it because it was an emergency meeting. And you ring the doorbell, and he opens up the door, and you say, "This is full-size Dalek." And it's like it was mocking me, saying, "Yeah, not writing for me anymore. You've lost the rights. Write another monster, you git." And so I kicked it really hard when Russell wasn't looking. But yeah, but Russell's got a full-size Dalek. I was sent one of those talkie things,
right.
And it scares my cat. Because my cat loves my bedroom. My writing bedroom, the bedroom I write in.
You have a writing bedroom?
Yeah, because I work about 3 or 4 in the morning. If I'm actually really writing hard, then Jane, my wife, says you can use your other bedroom tonight. So and that's where my cat likes to go. So I put the Dalek on top of the wardrobe, and I can press the button if he's in there, and he runs away. It's great. It'd be the equivalent of
yeah, great though, talking Daleks, aren't they? Because you can just, if somebody's on the phone you don't like them, you just put the Dalek on the phone and throw it up and down.
I've never tried doing that, though, man.
Have you not?
No, because
you must try it. Right?
I'm not as
it
nuts
does work.
as you, but perhaps I'll do that. Yeah.
I think he might be as nuts as me. What do you think?
No, I don't think so.
He's a writer. He spends a lot of time in a dark room by himself.
Well, I don't meet people ever. I mean, actually, this is a real. I've never seen so many people in one place before. It's not with only see 1 or 2 people, and they're usually Russell. It's usually a big Camp Welsh.
Well, he is a lot of people in one person.
He's enormous. He's so big. He's 6 foot.
Effusive, that's a good word for him, isn't it?
Yeah, he just doesn't shut up. I mean, it's hard to imagine.
I know.
Just not shutting up.
I know, it's difficult, isn't it?
Yeah.
I've just thrown away my 200 questions, really.
Yeah, I know it's probably
Not
nice.
point, is there? I'll ask you a couple more questions,
okay.
And then we'll press on, and then I'll open it up to the audience.
All right.
Right, so you're on the set, so
yes.
I'm assuming you met Mr. Eccleston?
I've met Chris several times, but not actually doing Dalek.
Right.
Chris, yeah, I met him during Aliens of London Rose stuff.
I suppose what most
and I met him
people
doing Empty Child, but I didn't meet him actually on the Dalek set.
I suppose what most people are really intrigued by now is that, yes, he left after 1 season for whatever reason, fine, he's a working actor. I think a lot of people are really curious now as to where is he, what does he think of being an ex-Doctor Who, and would he ever appear at a convention?
He's a very shy man. That's Paul McGann. I can't. The thing is that he was quite keen to see it as something. He really threw himself.
Oh yeah.
Pardon me, into it for 9 months, and he really tried, and he was very excited by it. But I think it's that odd thing. He doesn't want to intrude upon David.
Right.
And
Right.
he
Well, that's good.
feels very much that, and he said to me, I think it's actually the hardest thing for him was that the news of his leaving early leaked so early. And he wrote me an email, he said, the hardest thing is I've been Doctor Who now for 3 days, and that's it.
Yeah.
Because I was introduced on Saturday, and now it's Tuesday, and I'm no longer Doctor Who. And I don't want Dave, you know, because David was pretty much known at that stage he'd be doing it. I mean, he leaked that leaked as well. And he said, I don't want now to spoil David's fun. So once David was announced, and they announced him, when was that? It was shortly after Dalek went out, because I remember at my Dalek press launch, all I was asked about was, are they going to cast David Tennant? And I couldn't say yes, because I'd have been, I don't know.
It's funny, isn't it? You get
Christmas on BBC.
Christopher Eccleston, who I assume is not a big Doctor Who fan.
No,
he said he never watched it.
He hadn't watched
He's
it.
a kind of very
He watched it
serious
afterwards.
actor.
He has watched it since.
Yeah.
He watched
Yeah.
Talons of Wen Cheyenne.
Oh, right.
He said, oh, that's what it is. I did that wrong.
Whereas David Tennant is just he loves it.
But the
He'll
thing
play
actually,
the part.
Chris was funny because Chris would try, and Chris came up to me at the read-through for Empty Child and said to me, he said, do you know, he said, you know that chap in Mine or Mine, Russell's other series at the time, the dad? I said, John Scott Martin. He said, yeah. And he said, is the grandfather of the guy who played the Dalek voice for us, Nick Briggs. And he did the Dalek voices in the 60s. And I said, no. John Scott Martin was inside the Daleks in the 70s. Peter Hawkins was doing the Dalek voices in the 60s. And Nick Briggs isn't related to him at all. He said, I'm crap at this, aren't I? I said, yeah. you know nothing, Chris. You know nothing.
Who are you?
It's the hardest thing was he went on to, the first thing he did was BBC Breakfast. And they asked him about monsters and he didn't know anything. He made up, he remembered the Sontarans vaguely. He'd never really seen it.
He looked very nervous on Jonathan Ross, didn't he? Before the series started. And when he saw the figure of himself, it was real horror in his eyes.
Of course, he already left as well. It's that awful thing. I've already left, and he's a figurine of me. I mean,
he was dying to say, "I've gone, don't do this."
It was hard. I mean, he's not someone. He's an incredibly hard-working actor, but he's an actor, and he likes acting, and he's not one of those people. It's one of those funny things because my wife's an actress, and there's an assumption from people that if you're an actor, it's because you want attention and you want to be stopped in the street. And Chris is not a man who wants that. Chris wants to act. Chris wants to perform and do a part. And so doing all the publicity stuff for it, I don't think... I mean, he was very happy to do it because he wanted people to watch it, but I don't think it's something that he...
It wasn't kind of enjoying.
I think seeing a model of that is probably...
Yeah, I just remember
Whereas
the
David,
face, he was genuinely...
David loves it.
Oh, yeah.
David, actually, there's a story about David. He's going out now, as you probably know, with Sophia Miles, who's in Girl in the Fireplace. And she went over to his flat soon after they got together. And she saw he's got to merchandise, and she said, you should just tell some of them to send some of it back, because he said, no, I had all this before. All these DVDs.
They're actually mine.
Yeah. David is as much of a fan as anyone in the film.
Totally.
Because I've known David for a few years, and and it's so funny he's the Doctor. I mean, I find that hilarious that he's now playing the Doctor.
I find it bizarre because I remember 2 years ago, I was talking to Gary Russell, and I'm a big fan of the comic book Luther Arkwright. And they'd just done, Big Finish had just done it.
Oh.
And I didn't know who was playing Luther Arkwright. And I said to Gary Russell, I said, who's playing Luther Arkwright? He goes, it's an actor with David Tennant. I said, who's he? What's he done? I said, it's really good. I thought, okay. But I saw him in Blackpool in the TV show, and I thought, bloody hell, he'd make a brilliant Doctor.
The thing that David had been this lead RSC National Theatre actor for years, and in fact, actually, the odd thing was, I felt really ashamed about it, because I write at the National, that's what I actually do when I'm writing. And I bumped into him there, because he knew I write the audio, so we had a chat about the latest Big Finish audio. He said, you must come and see my play on. I said, I'd love to, and it's at the National, and I went, it'd be fun. And he was the lead. And I went to see it, and he's never off the stage for 2.5 hours, and I thought he was probably a spear carrier, because I just, he was a Doctor Who fan, so I just assumed that actually,
that he had no real life.
That actually, because he does the audios and take any part, because he just happened to do it, I didn't realise he had that sort of status. But he's a tremendous, he was Romeo for the RSC.
There's a lot of excellent actors, aren't there, who you never see, because, you just need to be showcased in the television. I know he's a huge star.
He hadn't done much television. He'd done bits and pieces, but nothing which was that famous. And he just said to me at that stage, I've been offered this thing called Blackpool, I think I'm doing that. And of course, that's actually, that and then Casanova.
Yeah, it's all at once, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right, I'll tell you what, I'm going to throw some questions over to the audience because we're behind schedule. Right, anybody got any questions to Rob? Or Rob, just stick your hand up, I'll point to you. Young man over there.
Hello.
Is there anything you'd like to have seen done differently to how Dalek ended up on screen?
Sorry, can I just say, can everybody hear the questions, or shall we just repeat them when people ask? You can't hear the questions. Right, so the question was...
I'm being asked if anything that was in Dalek that I'd actually like to have seen done differently. Sort of, but it's that funny thing that, I spent 9 months writing and rewriting Dalek to the point that, if you look at my first draft now, it's got different characters in it, seems to me, and every single time it went through a change, you have to embrace that and move on. And by the time it reached the screen, there were things I would actually quite like from my very first drafts to have ended up in there. It was different storyline things. But you have to let them go. I was just actually relieved that Joe Ahern did such a good job directing it, because the hard part is you hand it over, and you're aware at that point that you have no power at all anymore, and the director and the actors and everybody can do what they want to it. And looking back at I've chatted to one of the writers from the old series. I was able to meet them and chat to them about it, and of course they didn't have those sort of budgets that we had. And I was chatting to Eric Saywood a bit, and he'd say, yeah, the difficulty is that he'd had these scripts, and then we'd ruin them. He was talking about the heartbroken, how people would they'd go on and see the Merker or whatever, and you think, well, that's ruined my story. And of course now, and it still could have done. I could have just had a really bad luck and just a very, very bad shoot, but I can watch it and I can be very proud of it. There are things that, I probably would have wanted to have had another batch at writing Van Stappen, because he began to move away from what I wanted some time before, and I ought to perhaps he became a little bit too comic book villain for me by the end, but again, it's that thing that every time you try and build up the characters, quite rightly all the notes would come back saying, yeah, but that means there's less Dalek time. And it's really to bring back the Daleks who are doing this, so could you please let the characters go a bit? You have to just let them be a bit more functional. So, short answer, not really, but a bit, I suppose.
Did you write any scenes that actually weren't in the final edit?
Oh yeah, tons. Things that they actually filmed as well. But Dalek was the first one that actually overran, because every episode that they had made before that underran. The BBC had been so keen to try and save money on it, that every single draft you'd get, they would cut and cut and cut and cut down to the bone. And actually they always cut too much. Stephen Moffat tells a story about how, while he was in Australia, they were filming it, and said, do you write a scene now, overnight, but you haven't got any of the actors except for Nancy, and you've got the kids. But you can't have the gas mask child, you can't have Doctor and Rose. So he wrote the scene with a typewriter, and they filmed it the next day, because it was going to be 2 minutes short, the episode. Dalek was the first one that, because I always overwrite, they still have too much footage, and you didn't miss much. There was a sequence which actually I think is now a bit silly, where when the Dalek downloads the internet, the Doctor comments upon how it's had to wade through thousands of pages of porn and attempts to revive Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And it's quite a funny joke, and they chat about that. And you watch the scene now and you think, no, that really wouldn't have been emotionally right. But I try to put a bit more comedy in, because I'm really a comedy writer, and Dalek, very oddly, is probably the least funny one of that year. Which is odd, because other people like some of the other writers there were... we're all trying very hard to make it a serious programme. I was trying to put a bit more comedy in occasionally, because I just thought there was a danger of it all being rather well-known.
Just trying to squeeze in a couple more questions. Anyway, sorry, this young man over here.
How's your latest big finish scripts coming, and what can you tell us about them?
Oh God, they're slow.
The question was...
Yeah,
the latest big finish.
I'm doing a big finish series. I'm doing my own series. It's about the Borgias. It's about the Doctor living through about 100 years of Italian history, just stuck there and going native and being part of that historical period. And I really will start writing them soon. They have set, actually, in Jason's very, very amusing way, they actually sent me a cheque recently for them, and I never liked being paid before I'd written it, because I always feel very guilty. And they know that, so they sent me a cheque to say, here you are, we've paid you now, you have to deliver something soon. So I really will start this. It's about 4 hours on there, it's quite a long thing. So I'm doing it around other TV shows I'm writing, because it's a bit of fun. I wanted to say one last final thing for Big Finish, because without BF I'd never have got the BBC job. And there was a worry that we all felt this, actually, Mark and Paul as well, that people would assume that we were now too grand to do it. And we all feel that Big Finish is a great fun thing, so we all wanted to come back in some way and do something again. So this is my sort of way of showing off and saying, right, I'm doing the biggest story ever, and I've never written a historical before, and I love history, so it's an attempt to do something like that. But I really have, there's actually not one word of it yet written. So you could mug me and mug my bag and take my bag and you wouldn't find anything there. But I must write something soon.
True, I've rifled through it already.
Yeah.
Half-eaten apple and then...
You did actually steal some stuff, didn't you? But anyway, that's... but it wasn't my daughter's stuff, so it's all right.
No, it's just some stuff.
Yeah.
Sorry, there was a question down here. Yes? Young man here?
With regards to how much control you have over your writing work, do you find you have more control with your Big Finish audios or
Oh,
with
yeah.
television series?
Yeah, you have no control in TV. You go into a big TV show like Doctor Who and you know that you're there to provide a service for that production team. And you give them what they ask for, and you try and put as much of yourself into it as possible. But I was always writing Dalek under... I mean, bless them, they always said, we wanted to be your episode, we wanted to be something which you feel is entirely yours. But actually, they wanted that particular type of Dalek story, and that's what I wrote for them, and you have to let go of that. When you do the audios, yeah, it sort of feels like it's a much more personal thing. And if you're doing your own theatre and radio and your own TV stuff, and my own TV stuff at the moment is in development, then yeah, I'll have more power over that. But actually, I think that's a good thing. I mean, you need someone like Russell actually to be the chap in charge and say, I don't want that, and that's good.
Right, I'm going to cut him off, otherwise we'll go on all day, won't it? You would, wouldn't you?
Yes, I would.
Yes, you would. Right, I'm going to wind up there. I'm not sure if Eric is going to come back on the stage to tell you what else is going on, but is she not? Oh, she is, yeah.
I'm here, back and call.
Go on then. You told me what's happening.
You know
I know, it's just banter.
It's just banter between me and my dad.
It was a difficult birth.
As you can tell, I got me looks from my mother. Right.
Sorry, we're here to, Doctor Who.
I know it's not Saturday night, is it? Right, did everyone enjoy that panel? Yes! Very good.
I'll go and get my coat.
Right, we're going.
Yeah, thank you very much. Very entertaining panel. Thanks to God. And thanks to your dad as well.
You weren't expecting me, were you? I bet you didn't notice I was here. Oh, blimey, this chair's smaller than my bum. Did Eric have the same problem?
I think he did, yes.
When I stand up, this chair's going with me. Hello, lovely people.
Hello, lovely Colin.
That's what I like to hear.
Oh.
I'm still sinking into this chair.
Are you comfy then?
Well, as comfy as you, chap.
So, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Are you enjoying the day?
I've had a very pleasant day.
I've worked here a bit.
It's very nice to be here.
It's lovely style, isn't it?
Can't hear. Nobody's ever said that to me in my life, I'm sorry. We should need microphones. I'm an actor. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Go on then.
So how long have you been wearing that wig then?
Probably the same time as you.
2 weeks time you had it cleaned. No, I've got to be fair, she has washed specially today.
I have washed.
She told me I had a special wash.
I had my hair done on Thursday already.
Very smart.
I am very smart.
Very
today.
smart.
Oh, I was expecting Peter and you turned up. I got all scrubbed up and ready and you walked in the door.
You've heard about his habits, have you?
Yes. That's why I got scrubbed up. Anyway, enough of that, we'll move swiftly on. Are you enjoying the new series?
I think the new series is fab. Do you know, when it came back, I thought, it's going to be awful if it really isn't very good, and I'm going to have to give my opinion about it, but it's such a relief to be able to say, we've all had minor criticisms. We had major criticisms with some of my stories, but minor criticisms aside, I think the production values are fantastic. The characters are fantastic. The look of it is superb. I love the new TARDIS. And just as I had Nicola, the new companion is pretty ace. And she's the Nicola Bryant of her age.
Yes, yes, I agree on that.
And I think she'll keep most men watching the programme, as my friend Nicola did. To be fair, when I heard that we're going to have Billy Piper, who I'd never seen do any acting, I knew her purely as a kind of teeny popper singer, to play the companion, I thought this is Doctor Who consigned to the backwater of television, and I have to eat humble pie. She is not only very good in this part, but she's a fantastic actress.
She's very good.
She really is a very good actress. You could call the series Rose, in fact.
Well, yes.
Because, I mean, what has happened is that instead of being Doctor Who is followed around by little minions, we're looking at something quite interesting, which is the effect that this Doctor has on the ordinary people's lives that you meet. So I love the fact that her mother belted him around the face and called him a dirty old man. Because that's what would happen. It is rooted in reality. And I love the jealous boyfriend. When I heard that Sarah Jane was coming back, I groaned inwardly again. And not only did I think that I had to put my hand on my heart and say I never really warmed to the character of Sarah Jane Smith. I found her all a bit kind of not entirely credible. Last night I thought Sarah Jane Smith was magnificent. It was a very moving story, and I had a lump in my throat at the end. And I thought it was beautifully written.
It was well written.
Beautifully
I think that
done.
was the difference, it was well written.
Beautifully done.
And you?
And that whole thing about what it's like to be a companion when you're left behind, and the Doctor continually gets younger or doesn't get older, and you're left with memories. And
something that was never explored before either, so it was
I
really
just thought that was stunning.
It was really good.
I think Russell T Davies, as he says himself, is a genius. But he is. He is. He's a television maker in the old sense, where one person has a vision and has the passion and the size. He's not just his physical size, but of talent to put it onto the screen. And we're very lucky that someone with his kind of charisma and ideas has been allowed to do it.
Yeah. Do you think
it's very unusual in television these days.
Do you think it will go on and on again?
I think it'll go as long as they want it to. I think it's got a good 5 years in it. And I think they might need to look at the scripts a bit. The stories, not the scripts. The scripts are fine. I think the stories could be cranked up a bit. I'd like to see the Doctor being cleverer. I'm a little bit anxious about the Doctor being almost a god, as was implied last week. That I am above all of you. I am where it stops. Not entirely sure, but I'll go with it and see what happens.
Oh, should we go back to 1982?
I wish I could.
I'll be back in school.
And Peter Davison had hair, so did I.
Arc of Infinity, your very first Doctor Who.
Maxil,
yes. When you were appearing aside the lovely Peter Davison.
I tend to look at it as he was appearing beside me. The series was called Maxil.
It was a bit, wasn't it?
Maxil the Guard.
With Esmeralda.
Part 2. You all know the Esmeralda story, don't you?
Yeah, but we love it.
You love it?
Yeah.
Well, the whole thing about Maxil, it was very interesting, because the first thing that happened was I got a phone call from my agent saying I was doing a play in Brighton, I think then, and my agent said, "You've been offered a part in Doctor Who." I said, "Oh." She didn't sound very enthusiastic. I said, "Well, I read in the paper recently that if you played a part in Doctor Who, when they're recasting the Doctor, they're not likely to consider you. They've never cast it from anybody who's been in it before. And my agent said, don't be ridiculous, I don't want to ask you to do Doctor Who. So I said, yeah, you're probably right. And it fitted in perfectly with my schedule, so I agreed to play the part of Maxwell in the Arc of Infinity. Now, just as each one of you is sitting there now, each one of you is surrounded by the rest of us. You are you, inside yourself. You're you. You are the star in your own show. You're not a bit part player, you're the lead, right? Well, so was Maxwell in his life. So I didn't see this as a play about someone scurrying around the Great Doctor. I saw it about this irritating man who was making Maxwell's life difficult for him. And the producer came to see the producer's run, dear John Nathan Turner, and came across to me afterwards and said, are you under the impression this show is called Maxie? I said, yes. And he laughed. And we got on very well. And he said, it's one of the most arch performances I've ever seen, because I was standing behind Peter going, sighing heavily and doing my fingernails and doing all that. And he said, I'm going to call you Archie. And he christened me Archie, but he called me Archie for a long time. And said, stop it. You're pulling focus,
But
which
did
is a
that
bit naughty.
ultimately lead to you being cast as the Doctor?
I haven't finished the story.
Oh, come on. I'm being put in my place.
And one of the things that I had done was I had this hat with a feather on it, right? And they discovered that wearing the hat, which is what they wanted me to do, it looked ridiculous. I couldn't walk through any of the doors on the set because they were higher, they were only just a bit higher than my head. So to have the head of the Gallifreyan Guard ducking to go through doors, they decided, take your hat off and carry it. So I carried it, and then this feather stuck up in front of my face. So I tucked the feather end over the hat under my arm, and then it looked like I was carrying a chicken. So I gave the chicken the name Esmeralda, and the chicken tended, when Peter Davison was talking, to go... which amused Janet Fielding, but nobody else. And I was told to stop doing that as well. Anyway, you're quite right, moving the story on, it was that made John Nathan Turner some 6 months later when Peter said he wanted to clear off. And
Not because you'd shot Peter.
not because I'd shot Peter. No, Peter decided that he was rubbish as the Doctor. He needed to go and find a job he was good at. And so he asked if he could leave, and they said, yes, please, off you go. Bye.
He's just jealous.
Yeah.
Because Peter was wonderful.
Hands up those who thought Peter was wonderful. One male, one female.
Floppy blonde hair, what more do you want?
Anyway,
moving on from
Peter was wonderful. Just in case anyone takes me seriously, I'm joking, Peter.
I'm not.
I'm joking, Peter. So yes, it was my performance as Maxwell, and perhaps my... John Nathan Turner always says that the key moment for him was a wedding, a real wedding, of a lovely lady called Lynn, who was our floor assistant on the show, who I got on very well with, and she was a nice girl, and she got married, and she invited me, and John Nathan Turner was there. It was a lovely afternoon. It's one of those days, in all of our lives, there's a day at the end of which you think, not only did I enjoy myself, but I was really me today. You know, I was quite amusing. People laughed at my jokes. People never laugh at my jokes. But on that day, people laughed at my jokes. And John Nathan Turner saw me on that one day in my life when people were laughing at my jokes, and thought, he could be my next Doctor. And it's pure chance. So I will say to anybody out there, you never know what's going to happen. Because I nearly didn't go to that wedding. And if I hadn't gone, well, I certainly wouldn't be sitting here now.
Didn't he actually say to someone, I think I found my new Doctor?
He did.
At the wedding?
Well, I wasn't going to say that. But
I did.
But he said that to Gary Downey, who was with him.
He said, I think I found my new
I think I
Doctor.
found my new Doctor.
And didn't they take you out? Was it they took you out for lunch, or did they brought
I
you in?
invited him around to his office about a month or two later.
Did you get a lunch?
No, I can't remember.
I thought you talked about being took for lunch, isn't it?
No, I don't think I did on that occasion. And I was given a load of tapes of all the old Doctors and told to go away and think about how I'd like to play it.
And did
That's
you
how
enjoy
it
watching all the tapes of them?
I did, even the Patrick Troughton 300-hour version of the
Oh,
War
yeah.
Games. And I mean, at the end of watching it, I decided that I wanted to be grumpy and dressed in black. What was I? What was I? Manic and dressed in a rainbow.
But then they cast Christopher Eccleston, no. He was good
Christopher-
in dressed in black.
Christopher Eccleston got my costume.
He did?
And he also went around telling everybody that he was the first person who came from the north who played Doctor Who, like, you know, happy as how. Well, I wrote a piece in one of the magazines saying, I like Christopher Eccleston's performance enormously. I thought he was a great Doctor, very, very good. But what's with the northerner bit? You know, I'm a northerner. You know, all the other Doctors talk posh. We weren't allowed to talk with our own accents when we were doing it. If I'd said, could I play the Doctor Northern, they wouldn't have let me do it. It's just the fashions have changed. I come from Manchester, like him. Tom Baker came from Liverpool. Paul McGann comes from Liverpool. Sylvester McCoy comes from Scotland. How northern did he get? What's this northerner bit?
Yes, he was a bit.
That really does irritate me. But that aside, he did it very well.
He did do a good job.
He did a good job. I think David's even better.
Better.
Yes! Because David's added in that kind of that humour thing as well.
I think he's got it spot on.
And there's a kind of glee.
He's got a twinkle.
Christopher Eccleston, I loved Christopher Eccleston's moment. I love that thing where the spaceship comes across and bashes about a Big Ben and he goes, yeah! I like the Doctor being enthused by something happening.
I think David's got a bit of twinkle in his eye.
But what I didn't like is the way he treated that Dalek. I'm sorry. I did the original version of that story on
Jubilee or something.
Jubilee, on audio. And I felt sorry for the Dalek. And I had a go at the people who were torturing it. Christopher Eccleston wanted to kill it. I can't go around killing Daleks, what happened? Where did the next story come from?
You shot the cyber controller.
Yeah, he's a bastard.
About shooting you and the end was the same answer.
but the cyber, but what was interesting because it made the Doctor human. Because when I shot the cyber controller, I was angry.
Loved it.
I was angry. And besides, I've always wanted to go back. I've always wanted as an actor to be the one with the guns. Go. I have wanted to be Sylvester Stallone. There was a film on last night, Cobra, with guns and shooting and killing and blowing people off roofs. I've always wanted to do that. So, cyber controller, sorry, you had 40 years of.
Get yourself a PlayStation and shoot.
No, I can't. I'm not good with thumbs.
Oh, well. Right, and so you were watching your tapes, and had they offered you the part then, or did they just send you away with these tapes?
No, I was to come back and say how I thought I would like to play it, and I came back and said how I thought I'd like to play it. Then I had to go upstairs and meet David Reed, who was the head of series at that time, who was watching the cricket.
He was a cricket fan, wasn't he?
He was a cricket fan. And I said, oh, how... Because it was a test match, and it was Ian Botham. And I'd been sitting in the car park listening to the test match, thinking, I've got to go and accept this job of Doctor Who, I want to listen to the cricket. And I went upstairs, and John took me into, because John couldn't care less about sport of any kind. And there was David Reed, this man who had to say yay or nay. And he was watching the cricket, so we sat down and watched the cricket together and talked about cricket, with John going, you know, in the background. And he thought I was all right because I liked cricket. And I got the part.
You got the part. So your first day on set, what did you feel?
It's interesting. I'm an actor who is nervous on first nights, and I'm still nervous in television. But, you know, actors' nerves. But sometimes they can be very powerful. You think, even Lawrence Olivier used to do this. Actually, this is going to be the one that defeats me. I'm going to. If I wasn't too afraid to run away, I'd run away. The only time I've never felt that was playing Doctor Who. If you can explain that, the biggest part I've ever played, and yet I wasn't I wasn't really nervous. I just felt, yes, this is the one. I want to do this. I understand this. I feel inside that this is right for me. And I really enjoyed my first day in the studio. And I went home to my wife, who was sitting reading a book in our, we didn't have any children then, and I walked into the living room in our little cottage we lived in, and a little thatched cottage then in Oxfordshire. And I came in and I went, I am the Doctor. And she went, oh, that's nice, could you put the rubbish out? which is why I love my wife, because she put it all in perspective. And I went and put the rubbish out and got on with the job. But that is how I felt, though.
Did you put I am the man?
I'm the Doctor. You've never felt that, I have. It's great. It's a great thing. Yeah.
So, your regeneration scene with, I won't mention his name, but did he say anything to you when you sort of like...
You know, you answer this question, don't you? Because, well, I've been hanging around all day waiting to do, because it was his final episode. It was a very good story too.
It's my favourite.
It was a great story. And things were going wrong horrendously, and they had to ditch the magma monster at the end, which was this huge animatronic creature that had been built, probably the cost of, this naff monster that was actually not quite good, but when you compare what they can do now, and it probably costs more than what it costs to do what they do now. And these guys had worked hard making this thing with rods and electronic controls, and there wasn't any time to film it, so they just dumped it on the floor and said, not your lucky day, was it? Stepped over it with his bat juice, whatever it was called. What was it called?
Queen Bat's Milk.
There you are, Queen Bat's Milk.
I've watched that story for like 40 many times.
And then they said, quick, we've got to do the regeneration scene, and I did it, and what have you, and afterwards it was all finished. It was Peter's farewell party, and you know, everyone was going, oh, Peter, we're going to miss you. And I went up to Peter and said, well done, he said, oh, thanks. I said, any tips? And he went, no. Oh, I said, right.
Oh, well. She didn't give you any doctorly advice?
Nothing.
Nothing?
Nothing at all, no.
Spelling my illusion.
Quite disappointing. No, there was nothing like that whatsoever. But what he had done, of course, was that he wound up Nicola Bryant. Because he said to Nicola, because you know Clive Baker's taking over, don't you? Yeah, he said, do you know anything about him? He said, no, not for me to say, no. Well, no, just... And he'd been doing that to her for weeks, apparently. So I wondered why she was so odd. It took an awful long while to win her round. Because Peter had deliberately gone, Colin Baker, it's not going to be the same. God, you're going to miss me. So not only did he not help me, he hindered me.
So when you got rid of Peter and it was the twin dilemma, did you feel, right, I'm in charge here? This is it. And did you enjoy working on the twin dilemma?
I did, of course, because I didn't know that it was a fairly rubbish story at the time. And having watched it again, it's not as rubbish as some people think it is. But it's not great, it's not classic stuff, it's not Caves of Andrew's
holds its own.
But it's, you know, well, it holds something, maybe not its own, but it still holds something. No, it was fine to work on. You know, those twins were not the best, bless them. They were nice lads and they did very well.
Do you think it was a mistake putting your first story on the end of like Peter's last season? Would you have preferred it to like you start the next season as have your regeneration and then start the next season as the Doctor?
I don't know. I have no objective eye about that. I think it was an interesting idea.
It was.
And I think on balance, I think it wasn't a mistake. And the reason I think it wasn't a mistake is if you just do the regeneration, you've got no idea what's coming next. And I think it was quite brave and cheeky to set me up as the kind of very unsympathetic Doctor that was visible for most of Twin Dilemma. You know, the one who threatening, well, wanting to strangle Perry and things like that. I thought that was quite fun because it left an audience for 3 months going, the new doctor, he's a maniac, he's not nice, we don't like him.
Well, saying that, make them tune in and see what happens.
Yeah,
to it. So.
I like television that takes you by surprise.
Yeah, yeah.
I like
And
it.
I do remember it. I mean, I was fairly young in 1984, but I do actually remember it. I remember being a bit heartbroken, Peter leaving, but very excited. Very excited about the news. I remember actually, you know, when you get shot in the case on Gazani, my mum and dad had to keep me off school. I wouldn't go to school. I refused to go to school because he'd been shot.
And they didn't make you?
No.
I dragged you down there.
Apparently I had a bit of a tantrum and wouldn't go to school.
How sweet.
Anyway,
think of the tantrums that must have taken place when Sylvester McCoy appeared.
Yeah, I went to school then, I was top of class.
Schools were empty that day.
I was going to school then. Right, so you started your fresh season, 1985, 45-minute format.
Yeah,
Long
which is what we've got now.
Which is what we've got now.
Yeah.
And you got to take on the Cyberman in your first story. Was that really exciting, taking on one of the big monsters?
Yeah, so it was really. I mean, when you're working with them, of course, you realise, the poor old Cyberman, those, I'm sorry to say this, but it's a bloke in a suit. Sorry, I said I wouldn't tell anybody that, but it is. It's a man wearing a Cyberman suit.
What, it's a man wearing a suit?
Yeah.
It's not real?
I'm sorry. After all these years, it can be said, right?
So there's a man in the suit?
Inside the suit, yeah.
You're going to tell me next year it's going to be Father Christmas, isn't it?
Oh! And there's a mouth like that, right? Which they have to see through. So all they can see is a point about 18 inches in front of their feet. So all you've got to do is step smartly sideways and you're safe from the Cybermen, you know. It's all that running slowly. The Cyberman is following me. If you run at normal speed, you'd be well clear. So it's quite tricky to film with them. And the poor blokes inside there, they've always got bits of something stuck in them as well. The new Cybermen look pretty good.
They look pretty good. I like it when they're walking.
Because they're not blokes in suits, they're real.
And they're real. That's all right then. I'm okay now. It was quite violent after the Cybermen.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it?
I like it when you used to smash things up.
What's wrong with violence?
I loved it. I loved it when you smash people up and shoot them.
Yeah,
Great.
computer games. God, you kill 20,000 people before you have breakfast, some kids. So, I mean, I had noticed that they're avoiding any invisible deaths in the current Doctor Who, aren't they?
Yeah, they do seem to be.
Which is, I mean, it's still scary. It's still very scary. I mean, I think Anthony Head was really scary last night. All that stuff. But, you know, they close the door and you hear... And in a way, that's worse. That's worse.
It's what you don't see, isn't it?
Yeah.
Imagine it,
But, I mean, we had some good old deaths, you know, men in vats of acid.
Oh, Vengeance on a Forest,
that was good, wasn't it?
I like that.
Shooting the cyber controller.
But I think people missed the point when they criticised it for being violent Boros, because it was meant to be, it was the effect violence had on people, wasn't it?
It was a programme about showing people violence on television and how corrupting it could be.
And then people complained it was too violent.
Yeah. Wah, 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 wah.
I happen to be in the minority. I love Time Lash.
It's all right.
I like
it. You know, people didn't like Time Lash, and I kind of subscribed to that for a long time without thinking about it. And then I watched it again a few years ago for somebody asked me some question. I thought, I'll sit and watch it. It's all right.
All right. There's a nice looking bloke in it. That fella who plays Mick Ross, I don't know his name. Mick Ross, which quite fit. Just thought to tell you that.
Judge the entirety of television output by
how fit they are.
How fit they are.
Yeah.
And you?
Yes.
Yeah, well, fair enough, yeah. Girls are such shallow creatures, aren't they, Yes!
We can appreciate Doctor Who's a television programme and appreciate some hot male totty in it as well.
We've got.
Don't you agree, girls?
We've got Billy Piper, we have got Billy Piper.
Nicola Bryant.
Nicola, yes. Nicola Bryant indeed.
Move on.
No.
Who is because most of you know that poor Nicola's had a terrible health problem for the last year or so, and she is much, much better. She's much better.
Mm. Yeah, she was going to be here, but she
had to pull out.
got some theatre work, I think.
Yeah.
Apparently, perhaps she'll go. But yes, so yeah, your first season was quite fun. I liked that. I liked all the action and.
I have no. I am very dubious about this whole thing about completely non-violent people sitting watching television going, I must go and slaughter some people now because I've seen it on television. Oh, please. We see programmes about people being really nice on television. Does that make people really nice? No. If you're really nice when you start, you're really nice when you finish, and you're a violent murderer when you start, you are when you finish. I just don't get the correlation myself. You know, and you'd think watching television, everybody in the world is thick as well. Mind you.
Or man mad.
Or man mad indeed. And I'm certainly not.
Anyway, just...
Hello, girls.
Oh, isn't he a hunk?
Can you try that again as if you mean it?
I did. Nearly.
Listen, if John Prescott can... There's hope for me.
I know. I think it's his position of power or something like that.
Yeah, I'm a doctor.
No,
that doesn't do it.
No.
Well, you prefer John Prescott, good luck to you, sir.
Maybe. Anyway, in that scene, we'll move on. In that scene, because I'm going to start laughing now. In that season, there was the two doctors, which I think is absolutely brilliant. I love that, and I don't fancy anyone in it before you say anything. I just
Fraser Hines?
No, it's too short. I told you this, it's too short. I don't like short men like 6 foot. No, anyway, we'll move on.
Peter Weslitz.
No, he doesn't.
He has built-up shoes.
Oh,
The false head.
He's got beautiful blonde floppy hair.
Yes, and it looks very nice on the wig stand.
You can always turn the lights off, that's all I can say. Anyway, moving on.
Too much information.
Moving on to the as it being a family audience, moving on to the two doctors.
It was.
Moving on to the two doctors, was it brilliant working with Pat Troughton?
Fantastic. I mean, I'd known him slightly for years because I shared a flat with his son David for many years. Lovely David Troughton. And in fact, I was David's best man at his wedding. But he and his dad weren't on the best of terms at those times, so I didn't see a lot of him. But to work with him, I mean, for me, he was the governor. Pat was the senior living doctor, but also the one who did the difficult job. You know, we had a Doctor Who, someone said, I know, let's regenerate him. So another actor plays it, and we go, oh wow, he's regenerated. And it worked. It worked because Patrick is a superb actor. Came up with a wonderful characterisation, and we all went, oh, isn't he lovely? And I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you, but for Patrick Troughton.
If he hadn't done a good job, we wouldn't be here now.
So he was the governor. Now, I was a bit nervous then, when two doctors started. I, not nervous, but I was kind of in the presence of a senior, and I felt I had to prove myself. And he was very sweet and very generous and said nice things, so it put me at my ease, and we got on very well. We played jokes on each other, and he was great fun.
You can see it on screen. I don't know if anyone else thinks that, but you watch it on screen, it looks like you're just all having a buzz, you're having a real good time. It comes across in the story.
And we got to film in Seville, which was lovely in the summer, and staying in nice hotels, and I'd never done a job with, every job I've ever done where there was wonderful location, I was the one character that didn't go on it. So they all came back from Bermuda going, oh, didn't we have fun? For the studio stuff, and I'm going, yeah, great. And I did War and Peace in 1971, and everyone went to Yugoslavia, which was a nice place to go to then. And I didn't go. And they then decided a year later that I should have been there, and they remounted several scenes, and I filmed them in Luton. At Luton Hoo house, which is a stately home, and they sprayed about 50 acres with foam to make it look like snow and look like Russia. And I could have gone to Yugoslavia for months.
And you went to Luton.
I went to Luton instead. Anyway, in Two Doctors I got to go to Seville, and boring story, the wigs got lost in transit. I want you to know I did not wear a wig, no, naturally. But
That's what you say.
it is. But Cecchini and Dastari and people like that all had wigs. So we couldn't do any filming. There wasn't any stuff we could do in which...
Because the wigs had gone missing.
Yeah. So for 3 days, we sat in this hotel in Seville in a beautiful summer with a pool and a bar, and we didn't know what to do. So we got in the pool and we played, you know that game where someone sits on your shoulders and you wrestle to make someone fall over? Well, it was doctors and companions against each other. So, so Pat had Pat had Jamie on his shoulders, and I had Perry on mine. It took ages. We were there forever. Awful.
Was that a really bad experience for you?
Awful experience. And then Pat said, "Should we swap companions?" No.
No, it's not fair. You can't do that. That sounds like fun. And then we went on to your Dalek story written by Eric Saywood.
Yes.
Any thoughts on Revelation of the Daleks?
It's a strange story because we were in the 245-minute format then.
Yeah, yeah.
When it's edited down to the old half-hour format, I'm not in episode 1. The first 20 minutes or something, it all takes place on the planet and I'm not there. Nicola and I land and we go trudging through the snow and have that silly thing climbing over the wall. And then the statue falls on me. The Doctor's remarkably absent from the story, so it was kind of unsatisfying. And I hadn't noticed that until Pip and Jane Baker pointed out to me that that was the case, because they were great. I saw them this week because I was recording the DVD commentary for Mark of the Rani with Kate O'Mara and Nicola, which is great fun. Yeah. And Pip and Jane were the ones who pointed that out. They said they didn't like the story because it's called Doctor Who. It's not called Joe Bell and the Planet of the...
It just seemed like all the other characters were just explored and were on screen, and it was just like...
And that was Eric going through his unhappiness phase. He and John Nathan Turner had fallen out at that point, basically. They weren't on the same wavelength, and Eric was kind of bitter and twisted. And I'll be honest, I was unhappy with Eric because we'd become sort of friends. He'd been over to my house, he'd sat at my table, we'd have lunch. And he talked through his problems with John, and I tried to calm him down and explain that, you know, John was the producer and that, you know, you either have to do what the producer says or resign, but you can't stay there and moan and carp. And later on, he kind of slagged me off in the fan media, Eric, by saying...
I thought it was very unfair.
He didn't think I was a good doctor, but he never said that to me when he sat in my house, so I think that's kind of tacky.
It's a bit childish and bitchy, really, isn't it?
So, yes, I do have a vestigial irritation about Eric Saywood. I haven't met him since.
I don't blame you, to be honest. It's a bit bitchy and childish.
Yeah.
It's something like that. Moving on, anyway.
I know she hasn't done much since.
No. Shall we have a bitch, Darren?
I think I've done that now.
We have. Of course, after Revelation of the Daleks, when they cut out 80s black film out it, but there was a sort of an 18-month gap. The show was at, well, it was axed, wasn't it, for 18 months. How were you told? Were you took into an office or something and saying, like, the show's not going on? How were you told that the show wasn't coming back?
I'm not sure I can remember. I think John rang me up and said that the show had been cancelled. They'd renewed my contract. So I then had the BBC contracts department saying, okay, well, strictly we're supposed to pay you for next year because you're under contract, but, well, it might come back. I said, well, in that case, tell you what, I'll ring you up every day and say, are you doing Doctor Who today? And if you say no, I can do what I like. If I get another job, that's fine. Oh, I'm not sure about that. They went to chat with their lawyers, and their lawyers said, yes, he's quite right. So they had to pay me for 6 months. And my daughter had just been born, so I had paternity leave. Courtesy of the BBC. quite nice.
Fantastic.
And I did other jobs.
Fantastic. Quitted.
So that was all right.
That was all right.
I quite like being paid not to do anything. I could get used to it.
I work for the NHS, so I'm quite used to that.
Well, you're already paid for not doing anything. Yeah.
Right, so it came back 18 months. I think one of my bosses is still here somewhere.
Are you an expert at walking around with a file under your arm?
Yeah,
Looking
yeah,
busy?
yeah.
I used to do that when I worked in the solicitor's office. I used to, around about 10:30, I'd pick up, I'd say, have you got the so-and-so file? And get it, and walk out with great energy, off to get a coffee and go and meet my friends, and then come back with great energy and do a couple of notes, put the file back.
Okay.
Very good.
Yeah.
They do that in the NHS, do they?
Sometimes. John and Jamie will know, they work for the NHS.
It's not a disgrace. And you're bold, aren't you?
It does get very, very busy sometimes. We do work sometimes. Anyway, so...
This is being recorded.
Oh no.
Is this for the news, or what is it for?
Erica?
This is the promotional video for our Park.
That's your own one, is it?
Yes, it's
Right.
our own one. Yes,
Right.
this is our own one, yes.
It
Right,
might have been BBC News for all I knew.
it could have been a promotional video for the hospital I'm working.
Fine.
Right, it came back 18 months later with a trial theme.
Yes.
Did you like that idea?
I think it was naff, because it was supposed to be life reflecting art or art reflecting life, or whichever we're talking about, and it was a very dangerous strategy, and it's one that backfired slightly, because the verdict was clearly guilty at the end of it.
Oh, yeah.
Sadly, as far as I was concerned, anyway. It sort of worked, a running theme. I mean, they're finding that the whole Torchwood thing is running quite nicely through Big Bad Wolf and all that. So that the trial was a bit more obvious, but it sort of worked.
Sort of. I mean,
It got a bit tedious with the doctor constantly doing puns about the name of the Valleyard and all that.
it was funny the first time.
Yeah.
The 15th time.
Like all things, that you have an idea and they go to, like, I quite like the doctor doing puns, but not every sentence, you know?
Oh, I quite like Trial, but I just think, I mean, the first story was quite good. I just think they wasted Nicola a bit. I think, you know, she seemed to be, she was really good in that season, and then just the way she had, you know, she was shot. That was brilliant. But then to come back and say, oh, she's all right, she's married, I think that was a bit of a cop. Should have stuck to the...
She wasn't shot.
Well,
she was turned into a little horse
I
person.
thought from Midden.
Oh, yes.
Am I right?
Well, she was shot, was she? Oh, I can't remember. I thought she was turned into a snake.
Well, you were in it, you should know.
Well, I wasn't in that scene. Only turned up when it was my scene. But, I mean, it's well documented. I had this issue. I said, when a doctor is taunting her when she's tied to that rock, is it the Matrix lying, and this never happened? Or do I know I'm being watched, and therefore I'm doing this in order to convince them that I'm nutty? Or did that brain machine really do my head in temporarily? And I asked Eric Saywood, script editor, he said, I don't know. That was written by Philip Martin. So the director rang Philip Martin and said, no, Eric Saywood told me to write that. And so I decided in the end that it's the Matrix line. That was the easiest thing to think. So on that basis, I could go wholeheartedly for it, because it never happened. None of it happened. It was like the shower scene from Dallas.
Or Dallas, it was
Yeah,
wasn't
it never happened. It was all...
The Matrix was like...
Yeah.
I think we're ready to take some questions now. If anyone wants to raise their hand and ask a question. Just little chappy over there in the white.
Yes.
Looks like white from here.
What was your favourite episode you were in?
Sorry?
What was your favourite episode you were in?
My favourite episode?
Yeah.
Oh, it was Two Doctors, because of working with Pat Troughton and written by Robert Holmes. It was just a good story to do. I enjoyed that. The little lad next to him wanted to ask a question, didn't you?
Yes, but now he's already asked it.
Take him outside and duff him over.
Right, time for a couple more questions. Little lad in the red there.
How did you feel like when the Sixth Doctor died?
Well, I wasn't there, of course, so I don't know. I was not present for the death of the Sixth Doctor. It was, yeah, I didn't enjoy that, I must confess. It came, well, I suppose there isn't a death that ever comes that people want to have. So the Sixth Doctor quite liked being the Sixth Doctor and felt very sorry for you because of what was about to happen next. So yeah, that was a shame. I had unfinished business, but fortunately, the Big Finish audios have helped to finish that unfinished business. So if any of you have listened to any of those, you'll understand what I'm talking about. And if you haven't, I suggest you do, because they're very good.
They're fantastic.
There's some great stories.
And it's good because, you know, we all know that you were cut short.
Cut short I was.
You were cut short as the Doctor, and if you listen to the Big Finish audios, you'll see what a smashing Doctor he is. He really is. And of course.
Thank you. Yeah, very good.
Right, any more questions? Lad there, just there.
Which Big Finish audio one did you prefer doing? The Silence of Time or So Grace? Because that's the one where you met up with past Doctors, wasn't it?
Yeah, except of course it didn't. We did Zagreus. I didn't meet any of them. We did it all separate. I think I did some of it with Sylvester. Do you know, the other thing is that I think because you spend so little time doing those, you do each one in 2 days, and it's very intense, but then you forget. So I enjoy Medicinal Purposes, I know that, which is the one I did with David Tennant, who played Daft Jamie very well indeed. He does a very good Scots accent, actually. I like I like the stories with what is my companion called?
Evelyn.
Evelyn, thank you. It's so happy. That's brain. Because I think she's I like doing it with Nicola and I like doing it with Bonnie, but I also like doing it with Evelyn because she's a worthy mental adversary for the Doctor, which I think is quite nice. She's very challenging. And I've just done 3 in quick succession, which were very good indeed, and I can't remember a thing about any of them.
Maureen O'Brien in one of them.
Maureen O'Brien was lovely, because I'd always seen Maureen O'Brien as the reluctant Doctor Who companion who didn't want to get involved in it, but she was excellent. Oh, yes, that was the one with the pig. Yes, that was a delightful story. It was very strange and weird. I can't remember what it was called. Year of the Pig?
I don't know.
Yeah, it's not out yet, of course.
No.
But you'll enjoy that when it comes. It's kind of surreal.
Time for one more question.
Erica.
What?
You've got my ears too scared to ask. So my question is, if you had your own TARDIS, where, when and why would you go?
If I had my own TARDIS, where, when and why would I go? I'd go back to last Saturday and persuade Ferguson not to put Rooney on. Will that do?
Is it true you're a Man United and a Liverpool fan?
I am that extraordinary thing, yes.
No such thing.
I support two clubs in the Premiership, Manchester United and Liverpool. Now, that may sound very strange to you. I was brought up in Manchester, went to school in Manchester. Everyone at my school supported Man U, so I used to go to Man U. And see, the trouble is, if you're a Man U supporter, you have to defend yourself. I come from there. Right, okay.
In minority then.
I then came and did more than a year in rep in Liverpool in the 70s. And there was a girl there who was going out with Stevie Highway, who was playing for Liverpool at the time. So we used to go along to Anfield a lot. And I got to support at Liverpool as well. So I've never understood this great Man U Liverpool divide. Well, any divides really. I bet there are some Liverpool and Everton supporters, aren't there? No, you can't support both.
No.
Why can't we be loving and support each other? Why can't we all support everybody except Arsenal?
Chelsea.
Oh, Chelsea. Well, at least they've got some English players at Chelsea, haven't they? We've got Frank Lampard, you know. John Terry, they're good players. But, you know, I don't think the Arsenal players will be figuring largely in the World Cup, do you? Not for us, anyway.
Right.
Sorry, this is not a football.
Have I got time
And
for
my other
one
team
more?
is Wycombe Wanderers.
Right, this has to be the... I've got one more question. Anyone? There you go.
No one seems to have asked you about the Stranger tapes that I managed to be lucky enough to see. You were great in them. What was your experience of them?
The Stranger stuff was a chap called Bill Baggs, who was a BBC editor in the 80s, who wanted to, become a director. So he hit upon the very clever idea of being a Doctor Who fan, working at the BBC. He did a couple of, there's a thing at the BBC called the BBC Club, where people who work at the Beeb can use the facilities to make stuff, for minimal cost. So he did, with the BBC's own equipment and time, he made pseudo Doctor Who, except he called it The Stranger.
They were great.
And I was the stranger who was going around with a girl, I can't remember what Nicola was called in it.
Miss Brown.
Miss Brown, she was called Miss Brown. But in the first one I was this hermit who walked away from my time travelling machine, which we never saw. And they were very good actually, very clever. And he built up he did the first two BBC Club, then he earned enough money from selling the videos to Doctor Who fans, saying this is Doctor Who, wink, 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 to then finance doing it himself, and he made about 7 or 8 in the end. And he made each one to reflect the kind of programme he wanted to pitch for to work as a director. So we did a couple in a police station, and he sent them off to the Bill, So he had a market for it, which was the Doctor Who fans, and they were getting good stuff, they weren't being ripped off. And then he had gained the experience of, and I'm surprised he's never actually succeeded as a director. He's still an editor. He never worked in that respect. But the stories were good. In Memory Alone, I like particularly that Stranger on the Train.
And Air Zone.
And Air Zone.
Air Zone was good.
With Sylvester McCoy.
With Sylvester McCoy and John Pertwee. And I did a scene with John Pertwee at the end. I've never worked with John Pertwee, and bless his heart, and I don't often like saying things that kind of boost me, but we got on very well and worked together well, and at the end of it he said to Bill, I want to do another one with Colin, just the two of us. And it never happened, sadly. But I like John. He had such charisma. He could walk into a room and, he would eclipse most people. Even Jonathan Ross would probably shut up. Because John just had something. And even though he was in his late 70s, and he was having a bit of trouble learning the lines, and that's okay, I can respond to that. Nonetheless, he was the real McCoy. Well, So I was very sorry that never came to fruition.
I have to wrap it up now. Can I say a big thank you?
Thank you very much, everybody.